The new trailer for Spellbound is out, and a rumor indicates that John Lasseter has been considered to be the new chief of Paramount Animation, putting him in charge of SpongeBob, Transformers, and perhaps Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Let's talk about the big changes that might be coming to the industry if John Lasseter is allowed to ascend to the top of a film studio once more. Let's talk about that on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and here with me is animation connoisseur, Mr. VashSky. Vash, how's it going today?
Going very well. Thank you so much for calling me that. I was just animating myself, actually. No, not really. Just editing in DaVinci Resolve. But it's kind of like animation. A little bit? Not really.
Well, okay, so before this video started, for those of you who might be wondering, we did watch the Spellbound trailer, which just came out. And to be clear about the statements that I made before, Luck was the first production that John Lasseter had credit for under Skydance Animation, but he came in, as I understand it, halfway through and didn't have as much of an influence on that as he would have on, say, a Toy Story, start to finish kind of thing. Of course, he was actually the director of Toy Story. In this case, that is not the case. Someone else has directed this film. Her name escapes me off the top of my head, but perhaps it'll come as we go through this. This trailer is interesting for several reasons. First of all, it does not look like a John Lasseter animation production in the traditional Pixar sense of the word. It also doesn't say his name, although it does say from the creator of Toy Story, the creator of Toy Story 2, and Cars 2, and some other things. Some of those are less critically acclaimed, but also made humongous buckets of money. And some of those are films that have the rare distinction of being 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. So John Lasseter seems to know what he's doing when it comes to animation. However, this trailer does not leave me with the same feeling of from the visionary director of Toy Story, even though they use the words visionary director of Toy Story or something that means the same thing on this. Vash, do you have any thoughts on this before we talk about what is going on with the massive moves at Paramount and Skydance and Netflix?
Yeah, so director is Vicky Jensen. And from what I understand, this was a project that John Lasseter had a lot more involvement in than something like Luck, for example. And this has been in production for quite a while, actually. I remember hearing about this years ago at this point. Got some top tier talent on it. I say that and Rachel Zegler's on the screen. This was before the Snow White controversies and everything, folks. They have had her attached to this project for a long time. And to be honest, I mean, you know, from what I saw from the trailer, it looked pretty good. It looked like she was actually delivering right there, and she might be the perfect fit for such a character.
Right. And I do want to point out two things. First of all, I don't think Rachel Zegler will be writing her own script for this film. She also is a talented musical theater actress, which is the thing that is very much missing from this trailer. The fact that they are hiding the ball here. They're hiding the headline. This is a musical. And in the classic tradition of trailers, they are hiding the fact that this is a musical. And this cast here, first of all, Rachel Zegler, excellent singer. I don't know that Jennifer Lewis has a musical past, but Titus Burgess and Nathan Lane and Nicole Kidman, those are all people who have been in musicals. Nathan Lane and John Lithgow, famous for being in, first of all, Nathan Lane was in Lion King, and John Lithgow famously played Lord Farquaad in the Shrek series. So the other name that we haven't really talked about much is Alan Menken, who was one half of the Ashman-Menken partnership that rekindled. The reason for the Disney Renaissance was Howard Ashman and Alan Menken. And absolutely. Alan Menken's name has been attached to most of the great musicals from Disney since 1989, along with the rest of the mass exodus that has gone from Pixar and Disney Animation and has somehow ended up at Skydance Animation. That is one of the bigger, more notable names here. So they have not talked about this being a musical. Instead, we get Don't Stop Believin', which is from Journey there. So I'm getting a little bit of a DreamWorks vibe here. I never got the chance to see Epic from Blue Sky Animation, which Disney, of course, bought and completely disbanded. But some of the costumes from the army there remind me of Epic, even though they're full-sized people here. So this has notes that would remind you of previous productions.
has notes of him, but I think they are trying to position this maybe in its own kind of niche, because you can't go too far DreamWorks, but you can't go too far Disney, and you can't go too far Pixar. So where does that leave you? And I think they're doing some creative stuff in order to kind of separate themselves. We'll see if it actually pays off. The animation style is very unique and is very distinct from some of those other production companies. So we will see what this entails. I think John's influence, I think we will all have seen it in this film right here. But he's not just an important power player in the movies, but also too, well, I think you have this one, Jonas.
Well, yes. So first of all, thank you for teeing me up here. There he is, Mr. John Lasseter. He's right there next to Optimus Prime, although it's not Optimus Prime. It's whatever, Orion Rex or whatever the name is of Optimus Prime. Someone in the comment section correct me there. And over here on the right, we have the creatures from Spellbound. Those are the parents. That's in the trailer. I'm not spoiling anything. And of course, wearing Coco. It looks like a shirt and tie combo. Although when your tie is the same pattern as your shirt, why bother wearing a tie? Anyways, fashion notes notwithstanding, this is John Lasseter, the head of Skydance Animation. And this article from the Wrap Pro, it's behind a paywall, so we're not going to read all of it. Because first of all, we could just read the entire thing and it would be great content, and we're not going to do it that way. This is by Drew Taylor, who is a person who has disagreed with me online in the past, but I'm going to say this. It's a great article. He did a great job on this. What does the Skydance Paramount deal mean for Netflix animation? For those of you not paying attention, Paramount has been in talks over and off and on again with Paramount and Skydance here over whether or not they're going to merge those companies together, mostly Skydance buying Paramount. We won't go too deep into that, but it's been a will they, won't they for a while now. So Skydance has struck a deal with the mega streamer last fall and has movies by Brad Bird, Rich Moore, and Nathan Greno on the horizon. There's still additional context to add here. Skydance Animation ended their deal with Apple TV, and immediately, I mean, within a few hours, had a deal with Netflix. Now, Netflix ended up ending any dreams of theatrical releases for these films, especially while Disney was still on its knees reeling from some struggles in animation there. Everyone was wondering, could John Lasseter show up at the box office and clean Disney's clock? But instead, it sounds like things would be going directly to a streamer. In this case, and this article suggests that may not be the case, but we'll read the intro and then we'll get to some essential details here. In October of 2023, Skydance Animation shook up the industry when it announced it would be decamping from a 2020 deal with Apple Studios for streaming giant Netflix. New movies that Skydance Animation produced, including by filmmakers Nathan Greno, yes, that is Nathan Greno from Disney's Tangled, Brad Bird of both Pixar Incredibles films. Did he also do Ratatouille? Rich Moore, who was in charge of Wreck-It Ralph and came in, and he was the final director on Zootopia. I believe he was the quote-unquote fixer on Zootopia, would now bow exclusively on Netflix. According to several individuals with knowledge of the deal, the idea was that over time, as much of half of Netflix original animated feature output would be Skydance Animation productions. But the arrangement has frustrated in-house Netflix animation filmmakers. And while some insiders suggest to the Wrap that Dan Lin, who took over from outgoing film chairman Scott Stuber earlier this year, was unhappy with the deal, others familiar with the matter said that Lin and Skydance Animation chief John Lasseter are in regular conversation about the upcoming animation slate. So I'm trying very hard to add simplicity to an article that is very complex, and I think you should all go read the complexity in this article. It's like $15 to get a monthly subscription to the Wrap, even less if you want to do an annual subscription here. But it's a great article that breaks down a complicated situation. The thing that I want to bring up here is the tug of war matters because animated films are increasingly key to Netflix's subscriber base, both in terms of originals like Leo, which was toward the biggest debut for a Netflix animated film ever last December. That, by the way, Leo is the film about the iguana that is voiced by Adam Sandler, and licensed library titles like Boss Baby, Paw Patrol the movie, and the Super Mario Brothers movie. Only one of those do I ever want to see ever again, which were among the most watched films across the entire streamer for the second half of 2023. Animated films regularly dominate Netflix's top 10 most watched list, and the key to keeping subscribers enjoy a high rewatch value, as evidenced by how long they stay there. Should Netflix want to change course, the onus could be on the streamer to challenge the validity of the Skydance deal and get out of it, with Lasseter being a possible linchpin. But pulling out could complicate Netflix's upcoming slate, one source told The Wrap. Skydance may win either way. Ellison has repeatedly said he wants to release more, not fewer, films theatrically. If Skydance animated features, including Brad Bird's retro future detective movie Ray Gunn, return to Skydance from Netflix, they could be part of Paramount's more robust theatrical slate. So we have two companies with two completely separate business models here.
Very much so.
Paramount wants to be a theatrical company, and Netflix wants to be a streaming company. That is a really big deal. Vash, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. This is why the whole Netflix side of this whole thing kind of perplexed me, because it sounded like to me that John Lasseter wanted to go ahead and get some of these animated films back into theatrical distribution. But then when Netflix took Skydance on, it was like, well, wait a minute, hold on. We've heard multiple times from the CEOs of Netflix suggesting that they want to get out of the theatrical business almost entirely. They've tried it. They've had limited success with it, and they're moving on. So it was like, oh, it sounded like that these thought processes were diametrically opposed to each other when it came to the distribution of these animated works. It sounds like Skydance and Paramount, they want to get back in, which I think there is value in that, but I can understand Netflix's position. It's just fascinating how the conflict has arrived here.
Right. And to add another layer here, with Lasseter being at Skydance and Paramount being the holders of, again, Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and SpongeBob SquarePants, right now Nickelodeon is not doing so hot with their new content here. And Pixar used to be a source of new content, even though obviously they had sequels. Obviously they had tons of sequels. In fact, we're going to get, the third, fourth, and fifth of anything that they can get their hands on over there at Pixar right now. The talk was whether or not Lasseter would be made the head of animation over there. So let's talk about this for just a second. Should Netflix want to change course, the onus could be on the streamer to change the validity of the Skydance deal and get out of it. When Lin took over as Netflix's film chief, he was notified that the contract was contingent on Lasseter's exclusivity with Netflix. Lin came in after the Netflix deal, by the way, with Skydance. If Lasseter leaves the Skydance animation Netflix pact, then it voids the deal. Now the question remains, if Skydance were to install Lasseter as the head of Paramount Animation, which would see him oversee projects related to key Paramount franchises like SpongeBob, Transformers, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, would that negate the Netflix deal? An insider with knowledge stressed that Lasseter will stick with the Skydance Animation and Netflix deal, and that the parties will respect the initial deal. That is where I want to leave it with the current information. There's more in the article, and you guys should go read that article from The Wrap. But I think this is fascinating. First of all, Lasseter has the opportunity to rise yet again in the industry quietly. And I did review some of the allegations against him as I was preparing this. And I'll say that I'm hoping that he has made his amends, and whatever he needed to get under control, I'm hoping he's got it under control. I also think that some of it was a little overstated. Probably should have been an HR meeting, because nothing resulted in charges and nothing even resulted in settlements with any of the people that supposedly he had problems with. Of course, there's a lot of allegedlys when we deal in situations like this. So from a movie making standpoint, we don't expect complete morality from the people that make movies, but I would also like to see some morality from those people. Vash, what do you think about this? Is Paramount about to rock the industry, or is Netflix going to continue to release all of Lasseter's, could be movie masterpieces over on Netflix and not get noticed at all? What do you think is going to happen?
This is a fascinating development right here. I think there's a way to make this work for both parties right here. It just depends on what John Lasseter wants to necessarily take on and what Netflix will really allow. I think the ball's in their court. It fascinates me how much of a stalwart that John Lasseter is playing with these contracts and with these deals and so forth between these big major studios. It's impressive, to say the least, and it tells you the value that somebody like this brings to the table. It'd be a shame if he just, was pushed out the door in some unceremonious fashion. That'd be really bad. But I'm pretty sure Netflix is going to hang on to him. I mean, it's just so much of an asset. It's just really, it's sad that these, like you said, animated works might go unnoticed because they are on Netflix and relegated to that platform exclusively. But that's kind of where we find ourselves right here.
Exactly. Now, there always, of course, needs to be a path for redemption out there when someone makes a mistake. But that being said, I think it'll be interesting to see. The proof will be in the pudding as far as Spellbound goes. I think people are going to be interested in seeing, is it really Lasseter or was it something else that caused his success there? I've even seen people say that Lasseter stole the idea for Cars, which is a fascinating charge to levy, because I think there's also a lot of people that say that Cars is not one of his better works from a cinematic importance standpoint. It's definitely important from a box office and merchandise standpoint. But of all the ones to say that wasn't Lasseter's idea, interesting that they would go after that in particular. This has been a very long video about contemplation on the industry, and still I don't feel like we've scratched the surface. I think the comment section is going to be very interesting on this one, because even while just talking about animation, Lasseter is controversial, and no one knows everything about what happened there at Disney. But maybe we've got a little confirmation bias over here, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that maybe Iger felt like he could do it without this bottleneck at the top of the company and use the opportunity to get rid of something that he felt got in his way, as opposed to propped up the creative process of the company, so that Iger could get back to, reviewing these films 5 times by himself and fixing them. Whatever. That being said, drop a comment. I think it's going to be interesting. Like this video if you like this video, and consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.